Welcome to another edition of the Morning Briefing. I'm Jeff DeForest along with Mike Lubie. Very happy to be with you here on what is a getaway day for us here on the Morning Briefing. We're going to take a couple of days off surrounding the Christmas holiday. We want to wish everybody the happiest of holidays. Just enjoy it, relax, let go, everybody, have a good time, and figure that we're going to be rolling right into the New Year's week and New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and then, of course, all the resolutions. You want to make sure that your resolutions, you try to set them for like March. Because you ain't doing shit about it in January. Are you going to work off all that fat that you put on, the extra 15 pounds you put on over the holidays from Thanksgiving all the way through New Year's Day? No, you're not going to do anything about that. Don't join a gym either. That's a bad move right away. It's almost like going to marriage counseling. Forget about it. It's not going to work. Anyway, I hope everybody has the happiest of holidays. And, of course, we'll join you again next week on Wednesday with the next edition of Morning Briefing. So we have to get in a lot right here in a short period of time. And disregard the relentless reports on the news about the horrifying travel conditions for the holidays because they literally scare the shit out of everybody, don't they? You would not want to go outside. You would not even want to venture out to get your mail. Based on the reports about the outrageous conditions you're going to run into at airports, on the highways. Fortunately, gas prices seem to be very low right now, so that's a plus because you might run out of gas while you're in a traffic jam, according to every single report that you see on the national news.
Well, the problem is it's not only this time of year, but the weather sucks at least on the East Coast. Again, it's been gloomy for us for almost a week. Like we had the one day Sunday where it like opened up, and then every day since has been gloomy. The Northeast / the Mid-Atlantic has been hammered by storms, which affects, again, the whole country because of where planes come and go from. And then it's this time of year. So I can't lie. I'm happy I'm going nowhere.
Yes, I love going nowhere. It's absolutely fantastic. Anyway, a lot happening on the sporting landscape, especially last night. I had an opportunity. We've been stunned all year. I don't know how many times we've mentioned it here in the Morning Briefing. I probably dropped it in here a couple of times. That the Orlando Magic, the normally decrepit and never getting any consideration to do anything, but I don't know, what do they hope for in Orlando? They hope to move out of Orlando if they're smart. We'll get into that. But the Magic somehow are mystifying second in the Eastern Conference behind the Boston Celtics, who've been playing great basketball, invincible at home, and significant enough on the road to have dropped a $144 last night on Lubie's favorite sleeper team of all time. Does every basketball wise guy have to pay homage to the Sacramento Kings? Don't sleep on the Kings. Why not? They haven't been relevant since Vlade Divac was called for those egregious fouls against and Chris Webber, and company were there. It's been a long time in Sacramento. And it's a cow town to begin with, right? I mean, how is that the capital of the state of California, the majestic state of California? And the capital city is this horse shit town out in the middle of nowhere? It's crazy. It's just like the thing about Orlando here in Florida. But anyway, I'm trying to figure out, Lubie, and have you had any answers to the mystery that is, now we know that Banchero, who was taken number one over Chet Holmgren a couple of years ago in the draft, that kind of surprised people, didn't it? That particular draft, where you're not expecting Chet Holmgren to be the number one pick. That seemed to be the consensus of all of the draftniks. I don't know. I mean, even Huey Brown was talking about the fact that, I think they're going to go with Holmgren. They're going to go with the tall kid.
Yeah, it was between him and Banchero. Banchero, the problem with him was you didn't know what position he could play. He actually had a lot of talent, but he was probably not big enough to be a center, and he didn't really play like power forward. So that, because he was a good player, but Chet Holmgren felt like the modern day, the tall guy that can ball handle, that can shoot, that does play defense. He can play, you can switch. The switches bullshit that we always hear.
Yeah.
Switches.
Pick and roll, yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it was the poor man's Wembanyama of the next year. But, Holmgren, it was a surprise, I guess, when Orlando took Banchero. Now, it turned out to be the rookie of the year. Holmgren was hurt. I think if you look at what he's doing so far this year with Oklahoma City, Chet Holmgren, you would have to say that he would have given Banchero a run for his money as a rookie of the year last year. But and they got this guy. Who is this composer? They dug up some guy from the grave there, some German graveyard, Franz Wagner. Is that Beethoven? I guess.
I have no
Franz
idea.
Wagner. I mean, who is this guy? Where did he come from? He's averaging almost 20 points a game, 19.8 points a game. So I tune in to see them play a depleted Miami Heat team once again, having a run without Jimmy Butler. And the Miami Heat are playing some decent basketball. They seem to be showing signs of life. They got Tyler Hero back. So I'm figuring, all right, this will be a good test. We'll find out if the Orlando Magic are actually worthy of consideration for anything other than also ran material in this year's NBA. And they're sitting there at 16-9, and they suck. I don't know if it's just one game, but they're at home against a Miami team without its best player, Jimmy Butler, in the lineup, and they get smoked. A 17-0 run in the second quarter. Banchero goes 2 for 12 in the contest. You did see the son of Greg Anthony, Cole Anthony, is making a contribution this year, scoring 15 a game. Remember that year he came out in the draft when he was at North Carolina? Everybody thought he might be the #1 overall pick.
He was really good. He fell in the draft, but he was definitely a mid-first round pick. I wanted the Heat to get him. He was like a point guard that could shoot. He had a lot of promise coming into the league.
Well, I would say this after watching that game last night. I'm not optimistic about the longevity of the Orlando Magic at the top of the league, unless they just threw in a stinker last night. That's a possibility. But, I mean, the problem that they have is they have to live in Orlando, which is not a legitimate city, Lubie. You know this. Outside of going to Disney World, and you were telling me this morning that you have a member of your family or a close circle of friends that is obsessed with going to Disney World. There couldn't be anything more tragic.
My sister-in-law moved to Orlando. Her best friend had already moved there because she loves Disney so much, because she works from home. She can live anywhere she wants. Her husband does too. That she wanted to be within driving distance. And she goes to Disney at least once a month, and I think goes more than that, which is fucking insane.
We've been talking about hideous songs that get stuck in your head, and there's none more evil, more sinister to have that you can't get rid of than "It's a Small World After all the way fucking home. I mean, it's a 3-hour drive for us from Orlando, living here in South Florida, and all the way home. Yeah, you want to put your kids up for adoption after going to Disney World. That's what happens. So how can you live in a city that is? I mean, it's a stone's throw. People from Yeehaw Junction would say, "Hey, we're going to the city." And they go to Orlando. That's their idea of a city. To anybody else, unless you have an obsession with cartoon animals, there's no reason to go. There's no water there. You're in the state of Florida, Lubie.
Yep.
No ocean, no Gulf, just alligator-infested lakes that are ready to chomp on any little kid that gets near there when he wanders off from the campgrounds. It's insane. But anyway, I mean, the Orlando Magic, not much of a city. And from what we saw last night, still inexplicable. Whatever mystery there was about this team going into my viewing of last night's game, it was only exacerbated as to how they were sitting there second in the Eastern Conference behind the Celtics prior to last night's game with a record of 16-9, now 16-10 on the campaign. The Boca Raton Bowl is being contested today in town. I should have some kind of an interest in that. Boca Raton Bowl.
Your cues.
Syracuse. Now, Dino is gone there. Dino Favors gone, and they have an interim coach.
See, that's what's weird. This new guy is interesting. The guy that was the DB coach of Georgia, because he's already gotten some kids that they normally wouldn't have gotten. He's known as an elite recruiter, and the guy he's bringing in to be his DC is also known as an elite recruiter. But those people don't usually coach the bowl. So who is it? Like a former staffer for Babers? Like, I don't understand. Like, who coaches the bowl? Because the old guy doesn't, the new guy doesn't. So who coaches the bowl?
Did I say Favors? Yeah, Babers.
It was
yeah. And he seemed like he was always on the cusp of maybe doing something good. They had a decent run with Paul Free Pasqualoni and Dick McPherson. But other than that, I mean, they haven't been relevant since Ben Schwartzwalder was buried many years ago. I mean, I'm talking about going back into the late 60s. They had a couple of, years there where they were significant when Donovan McNabb was quarterbacking.
Yep, 90s.
But have never been a threat to win at all, a Syracuse football team. A vaunted program, distinguished by the many great running backs, a series of 5 Hall of Fame legendary running backs that wore number 44 there at Syracuse University. And when the tradition really went into the tank? When they gave number 44 to Rich Panzician, who was a quarterback of little distinction. I don't know if you can even, if you could spell it, you could probably Google the guy and find out that he didn't do much after his very, very tepid contribution to the Syracuse program. And he had 44 after what? I mean, after Zonka, you had Floyd Little, Jim Brown wearing this number, Ernie Davis. Incredible, right? And Jim Nance.
The other
Jim Nance. Yeah. And then they give it to Rich Panzishin, and the whole program goes into the tank. It hasn't been able to resurrect itself ever since. Anyway, that's going on in Boca Raton, Florida, and they're playing the University of South Florida. It's interesting because FAU put itself on the map last year as a basketball program, and they have how many people can fit in that arena? 5,000 or something like that? Is that the capacity for the basketball team? Which nobody in their right mind would have anticipated that this would become one of the hottest tickets in town. But they have to have certain inducements, I would think, to get people to go to the Boca Bowl. South Florida versus Syracuse. You would think free Botox shots. Is that possible? Gucci bag night? I mean, what are they going to do to get people to go to this thing? That sounds like a brick of a matchup for the local people here. Is there much interest in the University of South Florida? That's way over in Tampa. That's another part of the world to Floridians. So that's happening later on today. The Boca Bowl. We'll see what kind of response that draws. Now, you were all over this yesterday, the National Letter of Intent Day. And having done many radio shows with the, is he still around? Max Emfinger? He was the original high school recruiting guru. Have you seen anything from this guy? Did he do something sinister and end up in prison or something? Max Emfinger? He became a TV evangelist. I don't know what he did after that because he certainly, would give you an earful of what seemed to be unadulterated bullshit when it came to where these various recruits were all going. Now, is it more defined, Lubie? There seems to be less mystery in these unveilings. Like you already know where the guy is going.
There was a few, like Florida lost a lot of kids the last week or so. Ohio State lost a lot of kids the last week or so. Florida had a couple kids stay that they needed to stay desperately. Ohio State had the number one player in the country out of he's out of South Florida, actually, stay. Florida State lost a kid that was their top recruit. Miami flipped another kid of Florida State, but that was sort of known. For the most part, where you used to have, first of all, it used to be February. Then they started this thing, but still have February. February still exists. Some kids still trickle in February, but now it's pretty much, I would say 90% of the kids do it now. And on top of that, most of the classes settled by yesterday. A few moves here and there, but the flips, the commitments, the hat, you don't see the hat thing anymore. Like you're committed somewhere. By now you're committed somewhere. So either you put on their hat or another hat. Like it's changed a lot. The drama's really mostly out of it. And it's just a lot of discussion and bitterness and bickering.
Yeah, Enfinger used to be on every radio show, and radio stations in the South especially were obsessed with this kind of information. For me, it was kind of like analyzing the NHL draft, where Buznitsky, what do you think about him, Defo? I don't know. I have no idea who these guys are. Some 16-year-old that was coming over from Saskatchewan. But the high school recruiting was always of great interest, much more so before the transfer portal, as everybody will be quick to point out, where you're looking at teams being assembled from already existing players more so than recruits coming in. But still a vital part, I would imagine, of feeding the talent pool of various top schools. But it's the usual suspects every year, Lubie. Georgia, again, supposed to be number one. Nick is not going to be badly outclassed when it comes to recruiting. And then I saw, did this happen like almost simultaneously? Where this kid's uncle became one of the offensive coordinators for Nebraska, and they managed to get this number one quarterback to change completely everything he said.
It was a legacy, and his uncle was already on the staff, but it was weird that he never considered them, and then the last month, he became Mr. Nebraska.
All right, so they always have the winners and losers, and it was, as I say, it's always the same teams that come out on top of this thing, and a couple of teams that, got buried. Supposedly, UCLA, burial, my friend, burial. And the University of Florida you were talking about also. But none of those teams have any chance of winning anything as long as Nick is always going to be one of the 4 teams. Well, now it goes to 12, so maybe we'll have a little more of a fair decision on who the national champion realistically is. Anyway, you guys have a great holiday. I wouldn't get that much. I mean, National Letter of Intent Day. It used to drive me crazy. The people calling in, hey, you think little Johnny Jones is going to sign here at DeForest?
I mean, he did well. Cristobal got a crap load of 3 stars, so it made the class look prettier than it is. But he did a nice class. They have a top 5 class. He can't coach, so, and he can't get a quarterback. His quarterback recruiting is one of the worst in the country. The transfers don't want to come here because he's horrendous at coaching quarterback. So I'm curious how he wants to go old school, like Alabama in the 2000s, where we build up the lines, have really good skill position talent, and don't worry about our throwing. Let's just run it a lot.
That'll be very entertaining. Yeah, let's just run the ball. Why don't we just go and watch Navy play every ball game?
I wish that.
All right, we wish you all the happiest of holidays. Great, to have you guys tuning in to the morning briefing every day. We really appreciate the support here on Caffeine TV, NoFilter.net, the various other platforms that feature the program. For Mike Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest saying Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy holidays, and we will see you Wednesday of next week when we return to kind of summarize and capsulize what has been a great, great year all the way around in the sporting world and in life as well. And don't adhere to all of those horror stories about the travel. Just go to the airport and make your flight. And we'll see you next time on the morning briefing.